when I first got out of jail, like in '89, the end of '89. I didn't want to go back to jail. I wanted to do something with myself.
Snoop Dogg survived the trenches, beat a murder case, and lost family members along the way, but still rose to become one of the most recognizable figures in hip-hop history. Let's rewind the clock and break down how Calvin Broadus went from hustling on the block to facing a potential life sentence in an LA courtroom. Born Calvin Cordoza Broadus Jr. on October 20th, 1971, at Long Beach Community Hospital, Snoop's life started off unstable. His biological father, Vanel Vanado, a Vietnam War veteran, left just 3 months after his birth and moved to Detroit. Snoop was later named after his stepfather, Calvin Cordoza Broadus Sr., whom his mother married shortly after, but that marriage also fell apart when Snoop was still a toddler. His mother, Beverly Tate, became the backbone of the family, working multiple jobs to keep food on the table while raising Snoop and his brothers on the east side of Long Beach, one of the most dangerous and neglected areas in the city during the 70s and 80s. With factories closing, jobs disappearing, and crack about to devastate the community, survival wasn't easy. Snoop started hustling young, selling candy door to door, delivering newspapers, and bagging groceries to help out. Music became his escape early on. His mother, a devoted Baptist and church choir singer, introduced him to music through Golgotha Trinity Baptist Church, where he sang in the choir and learned piano before even reaching kindergarten. She exposed him to classic R&B and soul sounds that would later shape his signature style. The nickname Snoopy came from his mom too, inspired by his resemblance to the Peanuts cartoon dog, and his obsession with the show. That innocent nickname couldn't have been further from the reality waiting for him outside those doors. In school, Snoop was actually locked in. By 6th grade, he was already freestyling in the hallways, pulling crowds so big that teachers thought fights were popping off. He was a natural athlete too-cold on the football field, with real scholarship potential as both a wide receiver and defensive back. He stayed involved in church and kept music close, but the streets were getting louder. By the late 80s, the east side of Long Beach was overrun with gang activity. Drugs flooded the neighborhood, and police pressure was constant. Around 15 or 16, Snoop became affiliated with the Rolling 20s neighborhood Crips. He's always said it wasn't some wild initiation. When you grow up in Crip territory, most of your friends are already in it. The set offered a sense of family, protection, and a way to make money in a place where real opportunities barely existed. Looking back, Snoop has reflected on how fast things changed, how he and his friends went from kids playing sports and chasing dreams to young men trapped in the streets and pulled into the system.
As a kid, it was cool because it wasn't too much violence. It was, all my homeboys, we played football, basketball, we were in that sports or either going to school. But then as we got older, a lot of the homies started getting caught up and gangs started to form, and some of us started going to.
By his late teens and early 20s, Snoop was fully entrenched in the street life. He was moving weight, pushing cocaine, and making fast money, but that hustle came with non-stop pressure from rivals and law enforcement alike. Between 1989 and 1990, he was arrested multiple times on possession with intent charges. One of those cases in 1990 landed him in LA County's Wayside Maximum Security Facility for roughly 6 months. That short bit hit hard. When Snoop came home, it was a wake-up call. He realized the streets were a dead end and decided to walk away for good, choosing to put everything he had into rap instead.
I got out of jail like in '89, the end of '89. I didn't want to go back to jail. I wanted to do something with myself. And I just, started becoming dedicated to it, being a student to it, started making tapes and, leaving all the other madness alone on the streets and being more dedicated to rap.
Music became his escape route. Back in high school, Snoop linked up with his step-cousin Warren G and his day one homie Nathaniel Nate Dogg Hale, another church choir kid with a voice that could really sing. Together, they formed 213 and started recording tracks, crafting that laid-back G-funk sound inspired by George Clinton and the early West Coast pioneers. Their big break came in 1991 when Warren G played one of their demos at a party where Dr. Dre happened to be posted up. That moment opened the door, leading to Snoop jumping on Dre's Deep cover in 1992, and from there, everything changed. Before that breakthrough, Snoop and the crew were recording out the back of a local record store. Dre's younger brother kept telling him to get his music in front of Dre, but Snoop held back. He knew he wasn't ready yet, not until he sharpened his blade and perfected his craft.
Like I said, when we was making tapes in the back, me and my homeboys, Dre's little brother was my DJ at the time being, and he was always telling me, man, you need to rap for Dre. And I was like, I know I ain't ready for them yet. They had put Straight Outta Compton out, and I was like, I ain't even on their level yet. So we just went ahead and kept making.
By 1993, Snoop was on the verge of superstardom. At just 21 years old, he was gearing up to release Dog Castillion album that would go on to become the fastest-selling rap debut of all time. His future looked untouchable. But on August 25, 1993, gunshots echoed near his Los Angeles apartment complex, and in an instant, everything he'd built was at risk. What followed was a legal battle that threatened to erase his career before it truly began a murder case that could have buried him for life. The tension behind the shooting had been building all summer. Philip Wildemarian, a 20-year-old man allegedly associated with the by-yourself hustlers, had ongoing issues with people in Snoop's circle. According to the defense, Wildemarian and his associates had been following Snoop's Jeep on multiple occasions, issuing threats and flashing firearms. That pressure finally exploded on August 25th near Snoop's residence in the Palms area of West LA that night. Snoop was driving his black Jeep Cherokee with his bodyguard, McKinley Mac Lee, in the passenger seat and Sean Abrams in the back. When they spotted Wildemarian walking through a nearby park, a verbal exchange took place. Moments later, Lee fired shots from inside the vehicle. Wildemarian was struck in the back and buttocks as he tried to flee and collapsed at the scene. He later died from his injuries. No weapon was recovered from his body. Lap quickly issued an all-points bulletin. Not long after, Snoop turned himself in, arriving with his attorneys. Both he and Lee were charged with first-degree murder facing the possibility of life in prison or even the death penalty. Years later, Snoop would reflect on that moment, describing the weight of walking into a courtroom as a young man with his entire future hanging in the balance, knowing one verdict could end it all.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question. What was that feeling, man? Because there's a lot of young cats out here that think the street life is all that. I remember everybody seen it when you was walking the court when you was a young cat. You going in there, you and Suge and them. What was that feeling, man? Could you describe that feeling to these young cats? It wasn't.
It wasn't nice. It wasn't.
We talking about murder was the case.
When you fighting for your life, when you fighting a murder case and you in the judicial system, first of all, the system designed to beat you anyway.
The trial officially kicked off in late 1995, with jury selection beginning in November and opening statements rolling out in January 1996. The case unfolded in Los Angeles Superior Court under Judge Paul Flynn. Prosecutors came at Snoop aggressively, portraying him as a shot-calling kingpin who ordered the killing as an act of revenge. They even attempted to weaponize his own music, pointing to lyrics from Murder Was a Case as proof of his state of mind. For the first time in his life, Snoop had real legal representation. Before this case, he didn't have the money to fight charges and usually took whatever plea deal was put in front of him. This trial was different. His freedom, career, and entire future were on the line.
I didn't know how to carry myself. I didn't know how to act because I wasn't never in a position like that. Normally, when I went to court, I would just take the deal. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have...
Yeah, that was me. I was deal.
Right. So I didn't have none of that. So this is the first time I ever had a...
The defense team was stacked with heavyweight talent. Johnny L. Cochran Jr., fresh off the O.J. Simpson verdict, joined forces with David Kenner and Donald Ray. Together, they pushed a self-defense narrative, arguing that the victim and his associates had been harassing and threatening Snoop's crew for weeks leading up to the shooting. Say what you want about Suge Knight, but when it came time to protect his artist, he didn't hesitate. Death Row put together an elite legal squad, reportedly spending close to $10 million to fight the case and keep Snoop out of prison.
When it came to my murder case, if it wasn't for him, I don't know what I would have did, because he was professional enough to know that you need a lawyer. You got to get a defense team. You got to do this. Don't say a word.
How much did your lawyer cost?
Man, we spent about $10 million on that case.
Damn. Just to get you out. He spent $10 million cash.
At least, because the case went on for 3 years.
The trial introduced tactics that were groundbreaking for the time. Snoop's defense team used video reenactments of the shooting something juries had never really seen. Beffaretto visually walked them through exactly how the incident unfolded.
It was the first time that video reenactments was introduced in court. So we had to reenact what had actually happened through a video that my attorney was willing to had found a way to put together, so it was like a reenactment like you see now when you watch those shows, the first 48 and all that. You see them we was the first ones to do that in court.
The jury entered deliberations on February 20th, 1996. After 4 tense days and growing concern that the panel might deadlock, they returned with a verdict. both Snoop and Kinley Lee were acquitted of all murder charges. On February 21, 1996, the jury remained hung on the voluntary manslaughter count, which the district attorney later dropped altogether. Jurors later said the self-defense argument held up and that they didn't trust the way police and prosecutors had handled the case. The ordeal took a heavy toll. Legal fees reportedly ran between $5 and $10 million. Emotionally, Snoop endured house arrest, constant death threats, and immense psychological pressure. He has spoken openly about leaning on marijuana to cope, praying nightly, and genuinely believing he might face a death penalty. That period sparked a deep spiritual shift for him. By the end of it, Snoop learned to slow down and take life one day at a time because during that stretch, tomorrow never felt guaranteed.
Is it possible for you to kind of map out a future for yourself, or are you taking it like as it comes at the moment?
I gotta always have a plan, you know what I'm saying, for the future, but I like to take it day by day because nobody's promised tomorrow.
By mid-1996, tensions were running high. Tupac was acting unpredictably, pressuring everyone at death row to pick sides in the East Coast-West Coast feud. Snoop, fresh off his legal battle and trying to keep his head down, didn't want to get pulled fully into the conflict. The situation had spiraled ever since Pac was shot at Quad Studios in New York in 1994, after which he began pointing fingers at people who, as it turned out, had nothing to do with the attack.
In my eyes, he was always big as me or bigger than me. He was out before me. You get what I'm saying? So he was my peer, but at the same time, it was a level of respect. So it was never about him being bigger than me being bigger than me. I mean, him being bigger than me or me being bigger than him. I actually got him 2 Death Row records. Suge, go get Cuz. He need to be with us.
Being on death row only poured more gasoline on an already raging fire. The label's reputation, combined with Suge Knight's aggressive approach, fueled a feud instead of cooling it down.
When did it go sideways?
Once Pac got shot. When he got shot, he felt like they did it, but...
And this was when he got shot in New York?
Yeah.
Before he got shot in Vegas?
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
And now...
So he felt like someone from the West Coast was involved?
No.
Or from the
like,
East Coast, rather, excuse me.
Yes. And later information came out that the people that he thought did it had nothing to do with it.
On September 7, 1996, Tupac was ambushed in a drive-by in Las Vegas after the Tyson fight. Snoop wasn't there that night. Had stayed back in L.A. Pac held on for 6 days before passing away on September 13th, just 25 years old. Snoop flew out to Vegas as soon as he got the news and saw his friend in the ICU swollen, hooked up to tubes, completely unresponsive. Watching him like that, Snoop broke down, realizing Pac wasn't going to make it. The loss hit hard, and the survivor's guilt was real just 6 months later. On March 9, 1997, Christopher Wallace, the Notorious B.I.G., was killed in a drive-by in L.A. after leaving a Vibe magazine party. The attack mirrored Pac's shooting. Shots fired from a passing car. Still unsolved to this day. Snoop wasn't involved, but the impact was massive. Within half a year, both West Coast and East Coast giants were gone. The beef had escalated from rap rivalries to real-life bodies. Snoop has said that losing Biggie broke the spirit of Hip-Hop.at. The center of the chaos was Death Row Records, unraveling under Suge Knight. After Pac's death, the label went into free-fall, money disappeared, artists weren't being paid, and intimidation tactics ran rampant. Snoop clashed with Suge over creative control, business disputes, and even his own safety. Yet, despite everything, Snoop still credits Suge for those early days pushing him to win, instilling a killer mentality and forcing him to reach his full potential.